Hey there, Dave here, and September's coming up, which means more exciting podcasts on Tales from the Backlog. Coming up on Tales from the Backlog in September, we will have Pony Island, Final Fantasy IV, A Space for the Unbound, and Lost Odyssey. Those are the four main show episodes. The Tales from the Way Backlog episode will be about Super Turrican for the Super Nintendo. And there will be a Patreon poll going up very soon over on Patreon. All patrons can vote. And speaking of patrons, I've got some thank yous to do. So a big shout out to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Ficori, Jill, Jeff, formerly Jerf, Kieran, Soccer, ZNA, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Randall, Jake Martin, Jenny E., Kurt Mattis, and many more. These fine folks have gone over to patreon.com/realdavejackson to kick me a few bucks a month and help support the show. You can be just like them. You'll get all those perks I talked about before, and you'll have my everlasting love and respect. And with that being said, time to dive into Animal Well. Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games deep dive review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a friend of the show, co-host of Geeks and Grounds podcast, organizer and host of Wholesome Games, and community manager for Ivy Road, as well as many, many other things around gaming world. And she's a friend to all the animals in your local well. Welcome to the show, Jenny Windom.
Hello, I'm so excited. And also that's really charming. I feel like a Disney princess a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. Fits in with the Wholesome Games thing, right?
Yeah.
We're just going around befriending everything in the local wells.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, oh, I cannot wait to dive into this game with y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's great to have you on the show, and we have a wonderful game, something I've been excited about talking about. It's one of those games that just begs people to get together and share the stuff that you discover. That game today is Animal Well, which is a Metroidvania kind of puzzle game developed by Billy Basso and published by BigMode in 2024. If this is your first time listening to the show, first of all, thank you for stopping by. Here's how spoilers work, and especially important for this game here today. We're going to, this is not like, this game doesn't really have a story that can be spoiled. I don't think. We'll talk about that. But this game does have a lot of discoveries that can be spoiled. So for the first portion of the episode, we're going to go no spoiler. We're not going to spoil all of the wonderful things that are down in the well. We're going to keep it on like a surface level. I'm going to try and, do as many well puns as I can here, but a surface level, kind of like that first layer of things that if you just picked up the game and played, you'll find they're not huge secrets. They're probably in the trailer, stuff like that. But we will save those big discoveries for the spoiler section. So don't worry about being spoiled, as always, on the podcast. So, what is Animal Well? If you don't know what the game is, we have some elevator pitches for you. I say this is a creative Metroidvania that asks the question, what if it was all exploration and no combat? Jenny, what would you say?
I love that. I said, Animal Well is a layered, cryptic, luminescent exploration into how far you're willing to go to find secrets, even when those secrets may just be for secrets' sake.
Mm-hmm. It does get to that point eventually, but
yeah.
By that time, you're so deep into it that it almost doesn't matter, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I don't know if this is getting too far ahead, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I realized I do love secrets, and I love figuring puzzles out and having those light bulb moments. Yeah,
absolutely. Gamers love treats, and this game is full of treats. I played this on PS5. I played it via PS Plus, where it, depending on when you're listening to this, it might be there, it might not. But on release, it was on PS Plus. It took me 8 hours to see the credits. And then last time I checked, I have about 16 hours. So I about doubled my playtime hunting for secrets. Jenny, how about you?
I primarily played on the Steam Deck, and I think I was just over 8 hours as well to see the first tier of credits. Currently, I'm at about 30, and I am actually still going. I'm still deep within this journey.
Yeah. I picked this. So like I beat this, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, something like that. I kind of like devoured it when it first came out. I couldn't stop playing it. And then I picked it up a couple days ago just to refresh before recording. And I just found myself continuing to play. Like it was just like, oh, I just found something weird and new. Okay, well, I better go investigate that, you know? So it got its hooks back in me. It is one of those for sure. So we always start the episode out by talking about our histories with the game, what got us interested in it, when did we first play it and stuff. Now, we're recording this, you know, not long after release, but I think this is a game that you and I were both really excited about. And I think we even agreed to do this game for the podcast before it released. So what was it about Animal Well that drew you to it in the first place?
The visuals were the first and most striking thing about it to me. I really love that sort of CRT pixely, like crunchy pixel art. And what I loved about this is that a lot of games play with a lot of light, and I play a lot of cozier farming sim style games, which are often very pastel-y, very light colored. And so having something that was a really dark color palette, but with beautiful pops of luminescence and color and light, I just could not take my eyes off it. So I knew from just the visuals right away that it was something I needed to play. And then I saw it and I got to meet the team, Billy and some of the other folks at PAX West, and they were absolutely lovely. And I got to try that demo at PAX and it hooked me in. I just couldn't, I stood there and looked at it for the longest time, even after I finished the demo. And what was interesting to me is that we know BigMode is the publisher for it. It got picked up, and Dunkey is the one who founded BigMode. For folks who aren't familiar, Dunkey is a content creator, like a YouTuber, streamer, like he does video game content creation. And so I admittedly was a little bit worried and skeptical because my job is video game marketing, a big chunk of it is. And I was just like, what's going to happen when content creators go in and this is their focus now? And this is what a lot of content creators are doing. So I was also really paying attention to this one, admittedly, because this was the first of a few games where it didn't fit a traditional publisher model in the sense that it was coming from like a games publisher. This was coming from a content creator who is very familiar with games, but, you know, hasn't published before. So I was also watching it from that perspective too.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle on it. And like, I think I have a kind of similar origin to a lot of people where I had not heard of this until it was announced that BigMode was publishing this, or BigMode was starting, and this is the first game. And they and I was like, okay, I remember the reveal trailer is really weird, just them standing out like by a lake and stuff talking. Billy Basso's doing the yo-yo and stuff in the background. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then they showed what the game looks like, and just like you, I went, oh, that looks like, it looks familiar but very different from all the other pixel art games out there. So that the visuals are super striking. And then I got a chance to play the demo at PAX East in 2024 here. And I don't know if you had the same experience or if the demo was similar when you demoed it, but it was a 10-minute demo. And when it started ticking down, like 20 seconds left, I legitimately panicked. I was like, I want to keep playing. I can't be out of time. Like, I got to go stand in line again. Like, and that's when I knew, like, this is something special. I'm going to have to play this one way or another right away. Because, you know, I demoed a lot of games at PAX East and I enjoyed a lot of them. None of them made me panic when the demo was over, though. This was the one.
Yeah, I think the demo was either very similar or it did have a timer. And I do remember as well seeing that timer count down, just like, no, but I'm just so close. I want to go a little bit further. Yeah, it was such a fun demo, and it was really cool because, yeah, I had never played anything like this, where it was a Metroidvania, like you said, with your elevator pitch, there's no combat. And so you are fully just able to enjoy the space without being nervous. And that's always for me. Like when I play Hollow Knight, for example, like there's always the edge of, okay, but you have to keep your eyes out. You have to be ready to fight, which we'll talk about later. I think there's moments in this game where you are a little bit,
sure, yeah.
You are a little bit on edge.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, the feeling I got, it just came to my mind. It's like when I was a kid and I would like play demo kiosks like at Walmart, and then like I'd like be having a great time. I remember playing Luigi's Mansion on one of these, and then my parents were like, "Okay, it's time to go," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to I don't want to leave. I want to keep playing Luigi's Mansion." It was that exact same type of feeling. So to get into our quick opening thoughts here at the beginning, one of the things that I remember about when the BigMode publisher reveal happened was people were very skeptical of it. And I remember this quote, and I don't know if it's real or not. I can't find it. But I remember a quote where, I don't know, it was reproduced that Dunkey had said something like, "Yes, I don't have experience publishing games, but I have lots of experience playing games, and I know what good games look like." And a bunch of people were like, "Okay, dude, whatever." And I gotta say, I kind of think he's onto something here. Like, this game's really great. It's easily one of my favorite games I've played this year, whether it's from 2024 or not. I played lots of games from other years too, and Animal Well's still one of my favorites. That promise of really enticing you to explore, giving you rewards for exploring, rewarding your experimentation, and then all of these like wonderful aesthetic things too. This is an absolute home run, and it feels like it came out of nowhere. And it's like how something this good just come out from nowhere like this. It's really like astounding to me how good this is. And it's so creative and so different from other games in the genre that, like, I don't know, sometimes you play a game and you're like, oh, I didn't think there was room for something different like this, but apparently there was. And now I'm like, okay, what other creative swings are people going to take within these genres? So this is awesome. I love this.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think like huge props to Billy Basso, because I think he's been primarily solo developing this over a period of 7 years. So like he's been like, this has been his life for the better part of a decade. So I am super happy that not only has it come out, because that must feel incredible to finally have a game like this come out finally. But yeah, the level of, I think what I appreciate is the level of love that's very clear in this game for this kind of ARG meta experience, in addition to Metroidvanias and other puzzle games. Like as we play, there's so many nods to other games of the genre in like the mechanics and the aesthetics. It's just, it feels like a love letter to the genre to me as I am playing it. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and like a different kind of love letter too, because it's not trying to copy things from the past either. It's not like an Axiom Verge that's like, oh, you really love Metroid, so here's a game that will remind you a lot of Metroid because it's, you know, looks and plays the same or something like that. This is not like that. So, but I agree with you that that love letter aspect of it is in there, but like within its own very unique take on this kind of game.
Yeah. I feel like also if anyone is interested in Metroidvanias or puzzle games, like I feel like this year or this past couple years, we've had games like Tunic come out. I relatively recently finished Outer Wilds. And these are all games that really lean on trusting the player, trusting the curiosity and the dedication of the player to unearth secrets in the world. I think these games all have very different components, but they all have this trust. And I think if you're wanting to play a puzzle game and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm feeling like, I think feeling smart enough is one of the common things I hear from folks. Like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to play this game. I feel like Animal Well, compared to some other games in this type of genre, is relatively accessible, at least in its first layers. I think once you get maybe to some of the deeper elements, it gets really wild, but more so perhaps than like Fez or Rain World, like some of these other games that maybe are its comparables. it has this accessibility where like you can probably get to the first ending and do so without a guide if you're very determined and like you stick with it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're curious
Exactly,
more than smart, you'll definitely be able to get through it. Like there's some tough sections, but it's not like the hardest game. And then your curiosity will be the thing that drives you through the rest of it, less so than, like you said, like, am I smart enough to beat Baba Is You or something like that?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's not like that kind of puzzle game. So
yeah.
We will put a pin in these various points, and we'll listen to a bit of the music from Animal Well. We'll come back and do our traditional setup, even though, normally we do a story setup, not so much in this game, but we will dive in proper after this music break. In Animal Well, it begins, you see an image of these 4 flames on the screen. They disappear one by one, and then your little Kirby-looking ball dude, you look kind of like Kirby, little orange round little thing. You wake up, and the game does not give you any words or directions on where to go, who you are, or what you should be doing. The only hint that you get is you see those flames disappear. Eventually you find a map and it will mark those 4 flames. So you have a target for where to go. And then in the process of getting out of the first couple of rooms, you'll see a couple things like a ghostly squirrel will run away when you get up close to it. So you're okay, where are they going? Let me chase after them, see what's up. That is about it as far as the setup and the tutorializing, at least things that are directly told to you or strongly hinted at. This is a game that teaches you how to play by giving you stuff and just saying, okay, try it out, see what happens. And that extends to basically everything except for they do mark where those 4 flames are on the map. And that's it. They just kind of send you out into the world to explore. And I think this is one of those things that hooked me during the demo at PAX and will hook people that are just starting the game out too, because within those first couple minutes, you're going to find some items to use. You'll find some firecrackers in a room nearby. You're going to find a dangerous thing that you need to learn how to get past. You're going to find some secret exits, some hidden walls, stuff like that. And so the wheels start turning. You're like, oh, it's this kind of game. Okay, well, I'm off. It's like Calvin and Hobbes. Let's go exploring.
It's really incredible how I'm amazed whenever games do this, where, through the design of the game itself, no verbal instruction is needed. No written instruction is needed. It's always amazing to me how much I am able to pick up. I'm always surprised. I figured this out. How did they know I would figure this out?
Yeah.
They set it up perfectly. I think it's really interesting at the beginning of the game because your character kind of hatches out of a flower or blossoms out of a flower, which I think, again, story-wise, I'm not exactly sure what significance that holds, but it feels significant. And I think also as you're exploring, what feels really interesting is the fact that you're in this it's caverns, but it's a really lush set of ecosystems.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most striking things in terms of setting up the story environment. You immediately see that there are these plants that are hanging down from the cavern. There are flowers, some that you can pick up that give you health, some that act like firecrackers when you throw them. And there are just so many different creatures. This is a really living, breathing ecosystem. And you can hear it in the sound design too. I love the sound design because in some places of the game, you can just stand or sit. I don't know what blobs are doing. They don't have feet. But you can just pause and listen to the sounds. And you'll hear birds chirping and barks in the distance. And it feels very living, which is very interesting because normally I wouldn't think of like a cavern as a lush ecosystem. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that sound design is really great. And that's probably one of the things that like really gets you into the game right at the beginning is, you know, seeing how the game looks and hearing, like you said, lush is a great word to describe how everything sounds in here. Like you have all these animal sounds out in the distance. You've got birds and other critters and like what maybe sounds like an owl hooting in the distance. And it's just, it feels like a full ecosystem down here. There's a room later in the game with some cats in it or some kittens. And my dog went nuts when he heard the cats.
My cat was so bothered by that room.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah. So same.
Yeah. There's a place where there's some dogs and they have great sound effects too. They're real goofy and fun. But all that like ambient background noise is really great. Well, the dripping water too, you get that, you know, we're underground type of feeling, even though you don't see your character, you know, go down from the surface like an Undertale or something like that. Like this is where you wake up, but you get the sense like we're in like this dense, this populated, this like, you know, humid place, and it all sets it up just through sound and of course visuals too.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up a really good question that immediately, at least story-wise, I found myself asking, because my big thing is like, who am I?
Yeah. Because
it's weird that, to me, it felt very weird. You're the only blob. Like, amongst all these creatures as you're exploring, they're all more animal-like, hence the animal well, but they're all more definitive creatures that you could name, like out of a zoo or something, and you are just blob, which I found fascinating. So the first question I had narratively was like, who am I? Who put me here? Why are we going for these 4 flames? And then just who did this? Who's in charge here? Because as you explore, you see that in addition to the lushness of very natural things, what becomes really increasingly apparent is the presence of a lot of very man-made stuff, like I would say not unnatural in the sense that it shouldn't belong, but it shouldn't belong with the nature. Like there's a really interesting contrast. Yeah,
there's a whole lot of stuff that you come across that I won't name right now, but there is a lot that you come across where you're like, why is this here? Like this is, it's unnerving that it exists in this place.
Yeah.
And that's like, there is a definite kind of, I don't want to say like scary, but there is like a spooky vibe to this game too, even though, you know, you're surrounded by mostly friendly or indifferent animals in here. Like there's not a whole lot of enemies in here. But there is like that vibe that you're in like this lush place, but there's something unnatural about it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that is a perfect way to describe it. Like there's something, even amidst all the nature, kind of unnatural going on. And I kind of got the feeling, okay, so when I have gone to the beach and I swim like in the ocean, for example, I am hyper aware that like, even though I may be snorkeling and having a great time, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
Like there is danger that could come up at any moment. And I felt an Animal Well captured a little bit of that feeling where I'm like, I'm here and I'm having a good time, but I don't think I belong here. And I feel like danger could happen at any moment.
And I mean, sometimes danger does happen. So there are... So I said like the game has like this spooky, not overtly scary vibe. Like this isn't Resident Evil 7 or something, but it is kind of, it's kind of spooky going around. You hear all these sounds. You don't know what's in the next room. There are some parts of the game that are legitimately scary. Like I think I could name, you know, 3 or 4 things off the top of my head that like got that panic in me when it happened. And I'm like, shit. How do I get out of this? Like that definitely happens in this game. It's like a kind of sneaky horror game in spots.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel I'm excited to compare what those spots are because I have very specifically, about 3 moments where my heart rate, if I had a monitor on, you would have seen the spike, which I think is really amazing because, again, this game otherwise is so peaceful and like cute. Like when you see like there are points in time when you see little critters like hiding in holes or just kind of walking around, and I love like being able to see the critters just made me so happy. And you know, again, friend of the animals in the well. Like that definitely held true.
Yeah, one of the first things you find is like really close to your starting room is a little burrow with a groundhog in it, and it's looking at you, and when you get closer, it like retreats back into its burrow and stuff. So like you get the feeling that a lot of these animals, like this is not a cohesive ecosystem that exists on Earth. It's kind of like a grab bag of just like whatever animals Billy Basso thought would be cool to put in the game, which I love.
Yeah.
So like you'll go around and you'll see all these wonderful animals. And again, most of them are either indifferent to you or they're afraid of you. They'll hide or they'll just kind of chill. You can like walk up next to them. I really want to shout out the pixel art for these animals because you have like this very like this high contrast between like the black backgrounds and like this dark place that you're in, but the colors and like the pixels are really bright in comparison to other pixel art games. Like it reminded me of Light Bright if you played with that when you were a kid or now, I don't know. But like just that, like you have this black background and then these lights, like it feels like every pixel on the screen has its own LED behind it, the way that it pops. And so when you have like these, you know, these beautiful pixel art sprites and animations for these animals that you find, like it's all like really, really impressive when you come across it.
And I in the sake of staying spoiler free, I don't want to get too far into it, but I think that Light Bright comparison is really interesting because we've already mentioned, you know, CRT references, Light Bright, which was kind of an 80s, 90s also reference. A lot of the tools you get are also very toy-like. And again, I feel like and maybe it's just my age and I'm placing it, but it felt like toys from like the 80s and 90s as a kid that I would play with. And so again, there's this childlike something that this game is channeling. And again, it's quite interesting because there isn't a definitive narrative. So you're not like getting a story like, oh, let's compare digital man-made created things and toys with nature. But there is this theming that happens consistently.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing I think that's worth shouting out as like being really excellent is, so I mentioned like the sprites for the animals in the rooms that you go in. A lot of times they're just chilling. You'll walk in a room and there's, you know, some monkeys just hanging out. They might throw something at you, but otherwise they're chilling. And as far as visual design goes, I love how the design of each room goes back layers and layers into the background. So you'll have like some stuff in the foreground that you're interacting with. And then like it feels like there's a lot of depth to each room and each layer of depth is filled in with details. So like those monkeys feel like they're a few layers back. And then behind the monkeys, there's more stuff. And that's like especially when we get in the spoiler section, we're going to say the word layers a lot.
Yeah.
We're bringing it up here to talk about the way that these rooms look too. Because I think that like, I don't know, a lot of games with a pixel art style don't necessarily feel like you're in these like huge cavernous places. Maybe they're older and they couldn't really pull that off super well. But that's one of the things that Animal Well does really well, I think, is that it calls back to like your memories of older things like that, like Super Metroid or something. But this is very obviously made with modern technology, and it's not trying to hide that at all. And I think it's like, it's just visually the music and stuff. It's all just so good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I will admit, for me at least, especially the first 30 minutes to an hour of the game, I thought it was beautiful, but it did take me a little bit of practice in understanding what the game wanted me to read as important versus what the game wanted to like use as just extra detail to fill out the space. So for anyone jumping in and feeling a bit overwhelmed visually, I think there is a little bit of an adjustment curve, because there were some parts where I was like, oh, I thought this was a wall, but you actually could, it's just in the background. You can walk past it.
Yeah.
And so I think there were some elements that took me a little bit of getting used to as I was playing. But once I understood what the game wanted me to, at least, and again, you have these like tiers and layers of understanding. You have this like first layer of understanding where you're understanding, oh, these plants, you can move past them. These pillars, they're actually not blocking your way. Once you get that, you're fine. And then you start learning different levels of reading. Like I have gotten so good at being like, there's one pixel that's not showing up there. There might be a secret wall behind it, So it's definitely a practice, but yeah, no doubt this is a very beautiful game.
Yeah, there is a certain like level of learning the game's language, I think.
Yes.
Seeing what you should be poking at and what is, unpassable or not important in any way, just kind of there to look good. One other thing to shout out before we really dig into gameplay here is I think that musically, soundtrack wise, it is a modest soundtrack. I think it's staying in the background most of the time, but when we talk about like the vibes of this game, we talked about sound design already. We talked about visuals. The other piece of that is just this mostly ambient soundtrack in the background that is like the last puzzle piece for creating this, I think you said like seemingly friendly, but also kind of spooky type of vibe. It's a tough thing to pull off, I think, but it's, this soundtrack really sets it up like that.
Yeah, there's a level of detail. Again, it's like the amount of attention that is paid to every little detail in this game is what really impressed me. Because the more you listen, the more you realize a lot of the sound effects, they're really good. They're really immersive. You feel like you're a part of this world. You feel like the world is alive. Once you start getting familiar with the sounds, much like the pixel art I found, I started to understand what a lot of these sounds were indicating to me. And so what's really fun is once you start getting to know, okay, what's familiar, you really start to know what's not, and then what starts to jump out of place. And so I love that this game was really just smart, again, and how it utilized not only visual education, but auditory education. It made it a little bit tough, I will admit, because part of me was playing this while I was traveling and my headphones weren't working on my Steam Deck because I forgot to charge them. And so playing this without sound felt, after having the sound, I felt like I was missing, like I was literally missing a sense, but it really felt like it was changing the gameplay for me because I was like, I don't know if I'm missing something. I'm sure I am. But yeah, this is one where you definitely want to have that volume up and you definitely want to start listening for things. Probably not in the first tier, but definitely when you get into like the secret stuff.
Yeah. It's we'll revisit this. There's a lot going on. And kind of the last thing to point out is I think that we talked a bit about how this game has some scary or unsettling moments, and the music plays a big part in that. The main menu music is actually like low-key, like really abrasive and weird. I had kind of forgotten about it until I booted it up the other day, and I was like, this is interesting to get you started in this, kind of set the mood, I guess, a little bit, and then it kind of fades away to these more ambient sounds. And then there's definitely parts in the game that get intense, and the music is like really, really intense, like huge contrast between intense moment and the room before. Again, it's like this is a game of contrast. You have the nature and then you have digital, and I didn't even put it together, and I love that you said that, where it's the sound itself. For most of the game, you will be aware of the backdrop of this ambient soundscape, but you're not like super aware of it. You're just aware that it's very pleasant. It's guiding your playthrough. But man, when that music comes in, when some of these scarier moments happen, it's super impactful. And again, it's because that dichotomy Yep, exactly. And that's a good segue to listen to a bit more music. And when we come back, we will talk about what it's like to actually play Animal Well. So Animal Well is a Metroidvania, like we said before, super focused on exploration. There are puzzles to solve. There are many secrets to find. This is a game primarily, like, if you made a list of the things that are important in this game, like secrets and discovery and exploration would be like the top 3 things on that list, even though they're basically the same thing. So there is no combat, like we talked about before. There are hostile animals, but you are not defeating them through conventional means. Even things that you pick up that seem like they could be used like a weapon, like one of the items that you get is a yo-yo. You might think like, oh, I mean, I hit people with Ness's yo-yo in Super Smash Brothers. Not in this game. That's not how it works. You have to figure out how to get past everything. So hostile animals are their own little puzzle for how to just get past them, basically. And those firecrackers that you pick up at the very beginning tutorialize this. They are not grenades that, explode when you throw them at things. They are loud. They make big, bright explosions. They don't really hurt things. So firecrackers are deterrents for a lot of, not a lot, for certain animals. So that's kind of like the game teaching you, like, this is the kind of game that we're talking about. So I know that in a lot of Metroidvanias, combat is like a huge part of it. You mentioned Hollow Knight before. Like, Hollow Knight, I mean, in my opinion, has an excellent combat system, but combat's a huge part of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Metroid, Blasphemous, some of my other favorites, Death's Gambit, Nine Souls that just came out recently as we're recording this. Those are like super focused on combat. And to have a Metroidvania like this that is, it's kind of like Disco Elysium. It's like, what if we made an RPG and just didn't have combat? It's better to have no combat than to have mediocre combat or something that doesn't fit with the rest of the vibe we're going for. I really respect the decision here. What did you think about this? It's this kind of bucks the trend for this kind of game.
I loved it. I mean, Hollow Knight's one of my favorite games of all time, but I'm not naturally proficient at combat, I would say. Like, it takes me a long time to get patterns. I am bullheaded, and so like if a game tells me I need to parry or I need to dodge, I'm going to do everything I can to just avoid that until the game really forces me to. So I make combat hard for myself. So I'm loving this idea of, when you have a Metroidvania, which I always love just exploring the world in general, focusing on the exploration and having the idea of familiarity being the focus. Like, you're going to get really familiar with every single room in this world. You're going to get really like up close and personal. And what I thought was really cool is, even though there's no combat, the fact that you can't fight kind of channels some horror elements to me, and that like there's a feeling of helplessness. And so I think even without combat, you can still create that really good tension and feeling of helplessness that a lot of horror games do intentionally when they just don't let you fight anyways and you just have to run. So I think that was super effective for me, and I loved it. I'm hoping more games explore this this type of framing, I guess.
Yeah. Billy Basso lists survival horror as one of the big inspirations for this game. And I even think the game started out as more of a survival horror game than it turned out to be. So you're spot on with that. Like, that idea of disempowering you, still putting you in dangerous situations from time to time, but you can't fight back. You got to figure out something else, is really interesting. You also hit on something here that I had not thought about, but you're exactly right. And when I think about why, because I love Metroidvanias, one of my favorite genres of games. And when I think about like the secret sauce and the thing that I like the most about them, It is those moments where maybe I've picked up a new item. Maybe I just got the double jump, and now I'm going back to all those places where I needed a double jump, and I'm going to go collect the treasure, or I'm going to find the new path forward or something like that. That feeling to me is like why I like the genre. If I could pick one thing, it's that. And this game is entirely that.
Yeah, I think like there's a thing I was taught in like marketing, which is the secret to really good marketing is a mix of familiarity and novelty. And I think that's what exactly like you said, the Metroidvanias in general do that really well because they force you to get very familiar with the space. And then every so often they'll add a new skill, a new tool so that you can look at that space with fresh eyes. And it makes for really dense content and dense games. And so I've recently been thinking a lot about Metroidvanias and time loops in particular. And I've realized that's why I love both of those genres is because it feels like not only am I getting that sense of discovery and curiosity, but we're also just like getting to see familiar places in a fresh light and feeling like you really understand it. Like I feel like I really understand some aspects of Animal Well. Still working on it, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. The thing I think that puts Animal Well apart in that regard from others in the genre is another Metroidvania might give you that fresh look on the places that you're familiar with by giving you a new ability that is used for very specific things, like a double jump or an air dash or something like that. It's just, I remember these places that had gaps I couldn't jump over before. Now I can jump over them, so I'm going to go back. Animal Well's a little bit different because the items that you pick up in Animal Well, like some of them loosely map onto items that you'd pick up in another game like this, but they're not exactly the same thing. So like your double jump equivalent is a bubble wand that you pick up and you blow a bubble, you can jump on top of it, but you can only blow one bubble at a time. So effectively it doubles your jump vertical, but it's not like there's a limit to it, right?
Right.
So when you pick that up, then you can go do the double jump loop through the map or whatever, or it will help you get through the rest of that section. What Animal Well does, though, is, and I'm not going to spoil it, or I'm not going to spoil them, but there are other uses for the bubble wand that the game will not tutorialize for you, that you are rewarded for just being like, hey, I wonder if I can do this. And a lot of times the answer is yes. And it extends to the other items you pick up too. They all have one use that is basically tutorialized. And then they have 2, 3, 4 other uses that are not shown to you. But if you experiment, you'll figure some stuff out. And you will then you get into this loop of going back through the map in Animal Well. You have not picked up any new items, but maybe you discovered new things about the items you have. And that's recontextualizing all the rooms for you. And it's like, I don't know, it's like magical in that way. And it's non-linear too. So you can like go in any direction. You don't need to pick up one item before the next item. You can just kind of pick a direction and go. If you hit a place where you don't know how to progress, you can leave and go somewhere else and come back later. And so like you're just constantly learning more about how the world works, how your items work, and just you keep doing these loops through the map. And every time you go, you find something new. And it's this feedback loop that just keeps you exploring. And that's why I beat this game in like 6 days after it came out, because I couldn't stop playing it. This is why.
Yeah, I think I am very much looking forward to seeing what order some of the things that happen for you, like what order you did the flames, what order you found some of the items, because in the conversations I've had with other folks who've played, some of our experiences, even again in that first level of like just finding the flames, very different. Like I think, and that's what's really amazing about this one, this title, is I think it's incredibly open. And, you know, I haven't played a ton of other similar games. I've been told like, oh, you should play, I think it's called La Mulana. Alana. And everyone's like, if you love this, go play that, because that's like a next level of like puzzle mastery and frustration.
I heard that's like a game where you got to keep a notepad with you and stuff.
Yeah, well, I did the same for Animal Well here. I had this notepad and I was like, I'm going to be taking all the notes. Eventually you unlock like this, you do get a map and there's abilities to like put down stamps, like most Metroidvanias. You get like the ability to take notes in there, which it ended up looking like a horrible scrawl. Like I couldn't read half of what I was putting in the game map. It was so bad. But yeah, this ability to cater, maybe not intentionally, the game to how you play, but the game does adjust to your style and strategy as a player. And as a result, you can like find different things at different points in time. And again, I'm like, how do you design for something like that? That feels incredible to me, that you could potentially think of most instances and paths players will take and still make the game. I think almost every area is accessible in some way. Like every main area is accessible in some way with the use of a few of the basic tools. That's incredible. It's so good.
Yeah, there's like we said, it's nonlinear in the order that you do the flames. There's also potential for sequence breaking that like it's a game that rewards you for saying like, hey, I wonder if I can pull this off with the stuff that I have. And if your logic is sound, this game will let you do it. So again, it's a super well-designed, really confident design too. Always love it when, people are just like, yeah, people are probably going to, do some weird stuff and sequence break and do things that I didn't intend them to do. But apparently Billy Basso is super cool with that idea because this game's just like full of stuff like that. So all the people who I know that really dig things like Tunic and Outer Wilds and all those other games that reward your curiosity and experimenting. Rain World is another one of those that I personally I adore Rain World for that specific thing, among many other things. But people who are into that type of thing, basically everyone latches on to what Animal Well's doing because Animal Well is giving you that same type of thing, but it's not required for you to be like that. Like you can just get the items, use the abilities and stuff in an order that makes sense, go get the 4 flames, go beat the game. You can do that, but there's like endless potential for other types of experimenting along the way, which is just super impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree. About 2 hours in, I was already imagining, I am not a speedrunner, but I was imagining the kind of speedruns that this game has the potential to have. And I'm very excited to start seeing what people do in the speedrunning community around this game. Yeah,
and there's some rewards tied to beating the game very quickly. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We'll see this at GDQ anytime now, I feel like. So yeah, that'll be cool. One other thing I want to mention, because this is something that I have thought about, because this is a game that there's a community solving aspect to it. It's a game where people will get together and share the discoveries that they made during the weeks after its release. We had a channel in my Discord server where people were just like either getting help with specific puzzles or more often just being like, holy shit, I found this thing. What is this? Does anyone know what it is? And someone will chime in and be like, yeah, I found that too. Actually, like, this is what I think. And there's this community aspect to it too. And you mentioned ARG and some, meta stuff like that too. And I had started to think like, okay, so is this a game where you had to be there? When the ship sails, is this game still going to have a, value for someone who plays this in 15 years when no one else is doing this stuff? And to me, the answer is definitively yes, because that core gameplay, the basics of it and how it just rewards you being curious will still be there.
Yeah, I've also been wondering that too, interestingly, because in my own playthrough, I believe I am at some of these puzzles where it can only really be solved if you are in a community of folks. And so at this point, I either need to just look stuff up or find that community of people who are also in that same point. And so I think I don't want that to deter people because I do feel like, especially immediately after launch, it felt like there was a really sharp pendulum swing when I saw really good reviews for the game. People were super stoked, but then a lot of people were like, well, I don't know. Maybe this is because all the people who like reviewed it well got to be in this Discord together. They got that prime experience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can do that. And I still think this is an incredibly strong game and one worth playing. And that sense of discovery is still very achievable throughout everything I've currently played, at least. And I feel like this is still very worthwhile.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Like, that's the conclusion I came to, too. It's that you might miss out on, I don't know, 3 of the hundreds of secrets in the game by not being there right in the moment. But you still have an entire game's worth of like experimenting and secret hunting and stuff that you can do all by yourself. Or, you know, if you need help with something, you can ask someone that played it or go look up specific things if you want. And, you know, I hope that years from now, there will still be people that want to band together and solve some of those community things together. But if that's not the case, I really don't think you're missing out on the big important stuff. I think that no matter when you play this game has a ton to offer to you. If you're curious, if you're still curious and you want to dig in, as much digging as you personally want to do.
Yeah, I feel like what's interesting is I feel like there have been other games where people have said that sentiment. One that came to mind, a very different game, but Journey. There's an element to Journey where it's like, oh, well, if I play it now, am I going to get the same experience that people did when, you know, they first came out? And there's a little bit of a co-op element there that I won't spoil just in case someone doesn't know. But yeah, I feel like that hasn't deterred people from still enjoying Journey. So like you said, I think you can find community and other people who are still actively trying to solve puzzles and enjoy Animal Well even beyond the launch.
Yeah. And that's a minor part of the game. Honestly, like that stuff, it gets a lot of attention because there's not a lot of games that do this kind of thing. But in the grand scheme of things and what Animal Well is, that is a very small part of it. And it's something that you could not do and still have like the best time playing this. So it's, you know, kind of unfortunate because the ship does sail on specific things like that unless you really go hunt out a community of people that are doing it all for the first time. But it is, I don't know, that criticism in particular feels like it's ignoring everything else that the game does. And it's just like picking on one optional thing to just be like, well, I can't do this. So I don't even, is it worth it? Yes, it's still worth it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I had not a similar experience, but when I played Outer Wilds, I streamed it and I discovered this community because they came into my stream called the Interlopers. And it's a reference to a thing in Outer Wilds, but it's a community of fans of the game who, you know, they've already played it. They've experienced a lot of its secrets. They have, you know, their own Discord where they hang out and talk about all the stuff. And what they do is they seek out people who are experiencing it in general, but specifically for the first time, and go enjoy that experience for the first time with them. And they're what I loved about this community, they're wonderful folks. They were really good about not giving anything away, just enjoying that fresh experience. And I feel like Animal Well has the potential to be a game like that, where people, like if you're playing it and you are a content creator, people will come in and be like, oh, I'm not going to tell you anything. I just want to see you go through this together and like have that experience again. So I think this is has that potential. I also read an article I think it was an article in The Guardian where Billy mentioned that he wanted this game to be released in a complete form. So he was like, I'm not going to do DLC or expansion or anything like that. Everything that's going to be in the game is in the game. And he talked a lot about game preservation and how he wanted the game to feel like it was going to be preserved in this form and played in this form for decades beyond its launch. And so I think for that reason, his intention was this is going to be something that people enjoy long term.
Yeah.
So I think that's very much, like you said, a small gripe in the middle of a very big wave of very good things about this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, while we wrap up this non-spoiler section, we always will begin the wrap-up part of this by answering the question, what type of person would you recommend play Animal Well?
I think the type of person who should play Animal Well is someone who enjoys the light bulb moment. So that aha feeling in games, if you enjoy feeling a little bit frustrated and okay if you're feeling a little stumped, because you know that payoff is going to feel great. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be persistent and curious. I think that is the type of player who should play Animal Well.
Yeah, 100% agree. Somebody who likes to hunt for secrets, somebody who's curious about not only, where have I not been yet, but how can I interact with the places I have been in new ways? People who are just always asking, can I do this? If you like games like that, if you like exploration, if you like, if you love Metroidvanias, but like you're kind of put off by how a lot of the new ones seem to be Souls-like Metroidvanias, if you want something more on that exploration side of the genre, then Animal Well is like a home run recommendation. I was thinking about it, like what do I not like about Animal Well? I can't really think of a whole lot. Like there's a couple of, sections that I thought were a little bit frustrating. I didn't love the final boss, but it was over very quickly. And so like they're very minor things. Like I don't like the final boss in a lot of games that I play. It's not a deal breaker. And I don't think there are any real deal breakers here for me personally. Like if you need combat, then maybe find something else to play. But other than that, I think this appeals to like the joy that I think a lot of people are looking for when they play video games. Like you said, the light bulb moment. Animal Well is like full of light bulb moments and light bulb moments within light bulb moments and stuff like that. It's I don't know, it's a real special game. And it released on May 9th, 2024, which like 7 other incredible indie games all came out on that same day. So I hope that if people missed Animal Well because they were playing 1000 Times Resist or Little Kitty Big City or one of the other games that came out on that day, I hope you go back and try it. I think it's definitely worth your time if what we've been talking about appeals to you.
Man, I forgot that May 9th was like the indie. I don't know what Indie-pocalypse sounds bad. What's a good version of Indie-pocalypse? It was like the indie tsunami or something. I don't know. Like it doesn't sound much better, but
I was thinking like it's the type of thing like if I made YouTube videos, maybe like in a couple of years I would do a retrospective of like, did you know that like all of these fucking games came out on the same day? Like all of these indie games, Animal Well, Crow Country, 1000 Times Resist, Crypt Master, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
It's a banger of a day. Like all of them.
And we all had to like, well, I don't know. I don't say we all, but I had to pick what I was going to play. And I picked Animal Well and I was not disappointed by it. And now I've gone back and played, some of the other stuff. And I hope that other people will do the same thing. If you picked one of those other games, go back and play Animal Well. It's real good.
Yeah.
So before we get into spoilers, we always do a bit of housekeeping, and we'll kick off the housekeeping section by turning it over to you, Jenny, to talk about the many things that you do around gaming. We mentioned Geeks and Grounds earlier. We mentioned Wholesome Games, and we mentioned Ivy Road. And I know you've got other stuff around the industry too. So tell people what you do and where people can find you.
Yeah, well, like you said, I do a fair number of things, but I think the passion project or where my heart really lies is with Geeks and Grounds, because that's like a personal pet project where I actually come from a teaching background. And so one of my favorite things to do with my students was book clubs. And I was like, what if we did that, but with a video game, which, origin story for so many podcasts. But I decided why not take a spin, do a version of my own, and that's where Geeks and Grounds came in. And it essentially is a game of the month club where every month we take a game. We really deep dive into it as a community. I found also that, I was rushing through games and I felt like I couldn't remember what I had been playing or like how it impacted me. And so I was like, you know what, maybe for one game a month, let's take it a little bit slower. And, we're going to dedicate the entire month to just playing it, talking about it, and enjoying materials around it, like movies that maybe tie in or books that tie in. And occasionally we do interviews with developers. And so if folks are interested, I think folks, honestly, like your podcast is a great comparison partner with it, because you do these deep dives as well. And you really take time to not just talk about a game and move on, but really dig into like what makes it really strong. What are some of the critiques of it? And I think folks who enjoy this probably would enjoy hanging out with us in Geeks and Grounds too. So yeah, geeksandgrounds.com. That's where you can find everything about it. And then I also create content under the handle Kimchika. So you can find me on like YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and that's just under Kimchika.
Yeah. Geeks and Grounds is a wonderful new discovery for me in the last several months. And like you said, the book club, but it is the book club that will do multiple episodes as you work through the game. No spoilers for things beyond the things that you're talking about on that day, like real book club style. Like I could say that Tales from the Backlog is a book club, but it's like, okay, you have 1 week until Final Fantasy 16. You're going to play the whole thing in 1 week? No, you're not. But Geeks and Grounds is one that you could play along with. So recently, some games that have been on Tales from the Backlog, if people want to go and do that real week by week book club style, stuff like 1000 Times Resist and Grease. And a little game that I love that I don't see people doing podcasts about, One Shot. Really love that game.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Have you? I haven't, because it's funny, Tales from the Backlog. I have a backlog that I've been listening to where I'm picking episodes from Tales of the Backlog and listening to. You have a One Shot episode?
I don't, because I started the podcast and I played One Shot. I wrote up an outline and everything. And then it was very early on, so I didn't know a whole lot of people, but I couldn't find a guest, so I didn't do it.
I mean,
might have to revisit it.
If you ever want to do a one-shot episode, I can totally talk about that game.
Yeah, I really like that one. And then as we're recording this, by the time people hear this, it will be over. But I am looking forward to your Citizen Sleeper coverage because I love that game, and there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah. I'm very excited. It's been cool. I think what's been really nice too is it has forced me to take games a little bit slower and pay attention to things. And honestly, what's been great is community members are bringing up stuff that I would have never put together or never noticed. And so it's a real testament to this idea of you get from media what you have experienced. You can look at it through your own lens, but other people are going to have other experiences that inform how they take in whatever media. And it's just really fun to hear the conversations that we're having. So yeah, it's a great, I love it. It's been a passion project of mine that I started actually a few years ago, stopped because I was too busy, and I started it back up again last year. And yeah, I hope to continue for a very long time.
Well, yeah, I hope it continues too, because I'm having a good time listening along.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. So I will give the recommendation for everyone to check out Geeks and Grounds, and I'll throw a link down in the show notes so people can find that easily and listen along, join the conversation. And of course, check out Wholesome Games and stuff like that. Lots of good games being showcased on there too. So lots of good stuff. Again, you're doing a lot around the industry and a lot of good work. So
thank you.
We'll try to send people your way.
Oh, I appreciate it.
All right, so now time to talk about myself for a minute. But if people want to support this podcast, if you've enjoyed what you've listened to, consider, of course, subscribing so you'll hear the next one. But also, you can join the Discord server and join the conversation about the games that we're playing and discussing. Animal Well's a good one. If you missed the concurrent discussion about Animal Well, you want to hop in the Discord server and talk, because we had a lot of people playing it. hop in and talk and, tell everybody about the discoveries that you made. It's a fun game to share the things that you found. And then, of course, it is a full community, not just people talking about the podcast. So video games, talk about what's going on in your life, share pictures of your pets, stuff that you're cooking, all of that stuff. We have a great group of people in there. So there's an invite link down in the show notes for the Discord server. Also, you will find a link to my other podcast. It is called a Top 3 podcast. We do top 3 lists. It's a comedy show, so very different vibe to this show. And let's see. Yes, you can leave a rating and review. If you've enjoyed this, that will help people find this episode, and that's what we want. And last but not least, if you want to support monetarily, patreon.com/realdavejackson is the place, and you'll be able to vote in polls for what games I do on the show. You'll get bonus episodes and a bunch of other treats. So that is the whole spiel. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it's full spoiler time for Animal Well. Okay, Jenny and I are back, and it's full spoiler time for Animal Well. This is not going to be a linear walk through everything that happens and what we discovered. The spoiler gloves are all the way off. So we might spoil like very, very deep secrets that I didn't even discover myself in the next couple minutes. So please be mindful of that. Go play Animal Well if you want to avoid all of that. But we are in the spoiler section, so let's go. And first of all, the first thing I just want to say that I held this back, but like, I don't know if I needed to hold this back earlier, but better safe than sorry. So there's layers to the secrets, right? And there's like, I think there's like 4 or 5 commonly agreed upon layers to the secrets. Mm-hmm. You've got the layer with the flames, you've got the eggs, you've got the bunnies, you've got all the shit that's after the bunnies. And then like maybe there's something deeper after that. What I think is great is that while you're doing the first layer with the flames, you'll find a bunch of eggs. And then you'll notice you keep getting rewards for eggs, and you'll notice that you didn't find them all. So you'll be hopefully curious and inspired to go search for eggs. While you're on the hunt to find all the eggs, you will find at least one bunny. There's one that's in plain sight in the game. And I only found 2 bunnies, by the way. So
same. I've only found 2 so far.
Okay. But when you're doing the egg hunt, you'll find a bunny in plain sight, and you'll get an achievement, a pop-up that says like, found a bunny. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, there's probably more bunnies. And then when you get on the hunt for more bunnies, you will just keep finding more weird stuff hidden around the map. And the way that like Billy set this up, where when you're in one layer, you'll find stuff from the next layer down, and you keep following that pattern all the way down. I think this is amazing to just inspire people to keep digging.
Yeah, again, when I said in the elevator pitch, I was like, secrets for secret's sake. That's not, I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, I love secrets. I love feeling smart. I love the light bulb moment. And so for a game to, I think, have these layers where as a player, I can also decide, I can say like, hey, you know what? Layer 1, the 4 flames, getting the credits, like that felt good to me. I can stop. That's great. For me, I was like, but I still have eggs to hunt. So of course I'm going to do layer 2. And I knew, and because of talking with friends, I knew there was going to be like bunnies to find, but I had only found 2. I have only found 2. But now that I found eggs, I'm just like, I mean, I might as well. And so this idea of just allowing people to say yes and to a game and have stuff there for them, I think is just so fun. And again, I think one of the things that I would normally critique in a game is, I wish there was a narrative to like tie it all together. And I think we can talk more about the lore of the game. I think there's some really good lore. I don't think, there's not really a narrative. And again, it's weird because normally that would be a bit of a ding for me, but in this game it's not, simply because the secrets are so fun with how layered they are. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
I think that and I agree with you, I'm not bothered by the lack of a narrative at all. And I think the reason I'm not bothered by it in here is because it's so clear from the beginning that there is not a narrative driving you forward. Mm-hmm. You never get any shred of like, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm going after the flames. Nothing. So you have no expectation of that being fulfilled, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you need a story, then that lack might be, like you said, a ding. But for me personally, I would rather have nothing at all than a story that's, underbaked or something like that. So the fact that like I'm within the first like hour of the game, I'm like, okay, no story. Cool. We're off. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
So, how many eggs did you find? Did you get all of them?
I am very close. I have 73 eggs.
What the? I thought there was. That's more than I thought was possible.
No, not 70.
Okay.
No, sorry, 53. Sorry.
53. Okay, that makes me. I was gonna say like, oh, it goes even deeper than I.
No.
Okay.
53.
But the fact that I thought it was possible should tell you something about the game here.
No, sorry. There's no layer 4 or 5
Extra
or I don't know
eggs.
where we're at.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm at the point where I have to look at a guide now because I feel like I've exhausted every egg. Because I think from what I've seen, there's like 64?
64, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm not, I was really hoping I could get all the eggs, but there are a couple where I'm like, I feel like I've heard other people say, I'm calling this out because I've had multiple friends tell me egg 14 for them. They were like, egg 14, couldn't figure it out by myself. And I'm like, I'm going to figure it out, egg 14. I have not. So I think I may have to join and look it up at some point.
Yeah. I got 46 by myself, no guides.
Dang, nice.
Well, not totally by myself. People in the Discord server would help if I like post a screenshot and be like, I don't know what's going on in this room. Mm-hmm. People were really good about giving like a hint that's not the solution. And that helped out with probably several of them. But yeah, I got 46. I did like 3 or 4 passes through the map and just came up with nothing extra. So I'm at that point too, where it's like, I could go look up the rest of the eggs, but then I would just be following a guide to unlock the eggs. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well just watch it on YouTube at that point. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm most nervous about. And I think why I have avoided looking stuff up for so long is because I think once you just have a map of where specific objects are, it becomes less of a, I don't know, it's just like, okay, you just have to walk to the spot.
Yeah. It's like all the mystery and all the exploration is gone. And like, I'm very pro looking at guides. I do it in almost every game that I play. But for this one in particular, like the entire thing is about the discovery. And I feel like once that barrier is broken, I will not do any of my own exploring anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's where I stopped. 2 bunnies that I found were the one that you see, of course. Yep. I got that one. And then I got the one for doing the mural, which I looked up the answer to.
I haven't gotten the mural one. I got one, I believe, with the crows.
Oh, okay.
There's a bunny that you can get with the crows, if I'm remembering.
What do you have to do with the crows? Do you remember?
Yes. So, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a room in the green area with crows that are kind of in a 3x3 with the center blank. And so what I did was, because the crows are making noise and they go in a very specific order. And so I sat there and I tried to play the order on my flute, and that revealed an area that had a bunny.
Okay.
And that was actually my first bunny. The one you could see took me a bit to actually get to.
Yeah, you need an item to unlock a door to get to it, I think.
Yep.
A lot of music puzzles when you get deeper down. And I guess if this was like a full spoiler cast, I might have mentioned that in a thing that I don't love. I don't love the number of music puzzles just because like I'm not particularly inspired to figure out music puzzles. The one with the cats was about as difficult as I want to do, and I couldn't find the code for the third cat anyway. So
okay.
Yeah, anything more than that, I'm kind of like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of music puzzles later on.
There is a lot of music puzzles. And again, this was the hard part because when, again, I was on the plane, that was at the point where I was primarily egg hunting. I had rolled credits on the first level of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And so as I was egg hunting, I was like, man, I know that I'm missing out on puzzles because at this point, it's not about looking for the flames. It's about paying attention to all of the little details. But yeah, I will say one of the joys, though, which we didn't get to talk about earlier, was the fact that relatively early on, I got the flute and teleportation, and the fact that the game like gives you that pretty quickly in the game itself, at least during my playthrough, saved me so much time. Being able to use teleportation was a gift, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, it gives you that flute really early on, and I think like the only thing that it like really hints you at is like you can play the flute to unlock those fast travel tubes. That's about it. And then you have this wonderful fast travel that will warp you back to the main fast travel hub room. But it doesn't tell you about it. The only way you'll figure it out is in the room under the big fast travel hub room. There's a fish doing this weird little thing in the water. Yeah. And I sat there for a while looking at that fish being like, that fish is really weird. There's got to be something going on. Why is it upside down? And then that's one of those light bulb moments where you're like, okay, let me try to play this, whatever it is, up, up, down, down, whatever on the flute. And then it's like so sudden when you warp too. Like the first time that it happened, like startled me because it's like whap, and then you're suddenly in another room.
It's so good. I will say in terms of finding tools, I did not find the bubble wand until like my second flame. So I was going hard mode, and like some of these jumps, I don't know how I did it. Like there's one jump in particular where I think I was using the frisbee essentially in places that the bubble wand was supposed to be used in ways to try and get like the double jump. So I was playing on hard mode, I think for like the first section of the game. And once I got the bubble wand, I was like, oh my God, no wonder everyone's like already at credits. Cause the first, like, honestly, probably 5 hours of my playthrough was like without bubble wand, struggle busing. And then the rest of it was cake because you could cheese it, which we should talk about the bubble wand and some of the hacks or not hacks, but strategies you could do.
Yeah, those things that they're there the whole time, and the game it's not withholding it from you. It's just, you got to figure out that you can chain those bubbles and infinite jump for yourself. So good. And it was one of those things where it was like, this is like the perfect example for what we talked about earlier. These items, they have one very obvious use. You blow the bubble, you jump on top of it, and now you can get to that higher place. But the bubble wand can also be used as an elevator to go down slowly, so you can take stock of like these new rooms in these vertical shafts. And then there's that thing where if you press shoot bubble and jump at the same time, you will jump on top of the bubble you just shot out. And normally you can only have one bubble out at a time, but if you're landing on top of the bubble you just blew, it doesn't matter. Yep. So that was one of those things where it was like a friend of mine, shout out to Juliet, she gave me like a tiniest of hint that like, hey, there might be more to that bubble wand. I've been fucking around and I think I can do some cool stuff. And I was like, okay, let me fuck around. And then I found it and I was like, oh my God, I can go anywhere. And this is here the whole time. Billy Basso obviously knew that this is a possibility, but just that confidence to be like, yeah, if you figure it out, you can go anywhere. Have fun.
Yeah, just go ahead and use it. Yeah, I found it by pure luck because I was panic running from something. I was panicking at something and I can't quite remember what, but I was spamming the buttons essentially because I wasn't thinking. I was just like, let me do this. And I found it just happened on accident that I jumped onto a bubble as I blew the bubble. And there was a moment, and I remember because I fell into water or died or something. And then I was just like, wait a second, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And I was able to replicate it. And it was the best feeling ever. I will say I haven't gotten the hang because a friend of mine was telling me, because I can do it where you're moving primarily horizontally, or you can kind of make your way up. But I struggle with the pure vertical version of that. I have a friend who can jump vertically, because I think with the bubble wand, you have to have a bit of room so the bubble doesn't hit a wall and pop or hit a plant and pop. He can do it vertically and not have to have any horizontal movement. It's incredible. I have not gotten the timing down. I can kind of just hover in place and not gain any ground, but it was really amazing watching him play and just move up. So he truly unlocked a next level strategy with a bubble wand that I have not been able to replicate.
That's crazy. I didn't even know you could do that. I think you can shoot a bubble under you when you jump, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the timing, I think it's not the same time when you're moving more horizontally. There's a little bit of a desync in terms of when you blow the bubble and when you jump, but he does it where he gains little bits of ground up, which is so cool to watch.
Yeah, that's crazy because there are those very tight vertical shafts where they're obviously okay, you're not going to do your fucking bubble trick here. But yeah, that's super cool. So that was a really fun discovery to find. I'm curious, we talked about this earlier, about the scary spots, those parts that that spooked you. So give me one.
Oh, man. The first one that truly got me was the ostrich. Just this ostrich is one of the guardians of the flame that you encounter. No, it's actually not a guardian. It's just a sub, I don't know, boss. I don't even know what to call it.
Boss,
it's like a mini boss. But you're walking around and this ostrich, it's got scary music. And so it's okay, I get it. I'm supposed to hide from the ostrich as it's pecking around. I go and you have these little nooks that you can go underneath this area's ground. So you can have a little hiding spot. I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I'm hiding from the ostrich. Its head comes down and it goes at a right angle and it finds you if you are not far enough in the corner or if you move and make sounds. Terrified me. I was so scared of that ostrich for a while. So that was my first scary moment.
Yeah, I think that was probably the first for me too. And part of it too is that it doesn't attack you when you're down there. It just gets its face right up next to yours and just squawks in your face real loud. And you're oh my God, please leave.
It's so scary.
So one of the first ones for me is a continuation of this because I think the ostrich is close enough to the starting zone that a lot of people will find it pretty early on. And that's the one that teaches you, I can go hide underground. Yep. And then when you go up to the dog area, there's a couple rooms where there's a dog and you have to go underground to avoid it. And then you get to a third room and there's a dog and you're all right, whatever, I'm going underground. Smell you later. And it follows you down there. And it's it's horrifying. And it's just like a wiener dog or something like that. But
yeah, I love wiener dogs. I'm this is one of my favorite kinds of dogs. I was that's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching its little body wind up and down that little cavern. Oh my gosh, heart attack.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most panicked moments for me in the whole game because you have to go through this little maze down there to get out the other side. And it's I don't know, kind of difficult to get through it. And all the while you've got this pursuer snaking its way through this burrow. And it's real creepy.
Yeah, even if you know the direction you're going, I found that in those panic moments, for me at least, because so many of these jumps are at 90-degree angles and you kind of have to hit, there's a level, it's not precision platforming, but there's a level of precision you need to make some of these tight corner movements. And when I started panicking, that was not happening at all.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a panic moment. Side note, other scary stuff in a second, but side note, when you realize that you can throw the Frisbee and have it bounce to get the dogs distracted, and they just jump up and they bark at the Frisbee like idiots.
So
I like
cute.
laughed out loud. It was so good. I love it.
Same. I loved that detail where it was like, again, it's this idea of you're using toys. And so being able to have dogs play with the toy, you know, specifically the Frisbee, I thought was so smart and fun. Yeah. It took me a little bit to understand that you can't let them catch the Frisbee. They need to be distracted by it.
Yeah. But just this infinite loop of the Frisbee going over their heads and them jumping up and barking at it. Their bark sound effects are so dumb and lovable. I love it.
Really quick other side note, layers here. What I also found very interesting about the visuals, and I'm in the midst of my bunny hunting, egg hunting, so perhaps it'll be illuminated later, but I think the fidelity of the animals is really interesting because some animals are like super detailed, very realistic looking. Some of the animals, and I think specifically like the dogs, have some of the most interesting variation because some of the dogs are more abstract, I would say, than others. And some are more cartoony than others, especially once you get into closer to like the Manticore area. So I don't know what it means, but it's another level of like, what are we seeing here? What is this place? Because it's sort of this fever dreamish abstract representation, but some of it's I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that or if you have any insight there.
For sure. Cause like, you know, the wiener dog we talked about, it's, you know, it's brown. It looks like a regular dog. The dogs that are jumping up to catch the Frisbee, like there's the room with 3 of them in it. And this is how you have to get past it. They're like blue, like they're ghosts almost. So that was weird. There's also like an actual ghost, and it's the next thing that scared the shit out of me is when you take the disc out of that altar and that big ghost, which we debated in the Discord server. Is this a cat or a dog, Jenny?
I thought I've been calling it ghost dog simply because it's in the realm of all the other dogs.
It's in the dog zone. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, this is the dog house over here. So
yeah. It looks like a cat to me, and part of me will never admit defeat, but I get it. It's probably a dog. I'm aware. But when you take that disc out and this ghost appears and, you know, jump scares you, but you're like, okay, whatever. Every other animal in the game, I can just run to the next room and it will be fine. Not this one. It will follow you the whole way. And this is one of those big things that like got brought up. Everybody who played the game in our Discord server came in talking about this moment in particular and how to solve this puzzle, because I feel like to solve it, no, I don't feel like, definitely to solve it, you have to give up and go explore, and eventually you'll find the place where you're supposed to take that disc. And then it's a matter of executing, platforming, doing some quick puzzles to get up there without this thing catching you, because it will pursue you indefinitely across the entire map.
Yep.
And this was a fun puzzle to figure out, like, what do I do with this? Because I can't just live the rest of my life with this thing chasing me.
Yeah, I'm curious what ended up being your solution to that puzzle?
For me, I had already unlocked and discovered how to use fast travel. So I fast traveled up to the place closest to where the disc was supposed to go. And that it doesn't like give you a big head start or anything. It catches up immediately to you, but it cuts your journey in half. So I know there were people in the Discord server that did the entire thing without fast traveling. So hats off to them.
Impressive. Like kudos, the true gamers over there. Wow. For real. So for my run, what I did was I thought that maybe the dog would actually follow me all the way down the map. And so what I did was I was like, let me go to the hub, which is in the lower left-hand corner, take it there. Once I see it in this window, I'm then going to travel to the bear to buy myself hopefully a few extra seconds of no ghost dog time. I don't know if it actually worked, but psychologically it really helped me feel confident in my run and that final bit of the puzzle solving. So yeah, it made me feel smart, even though maybe that made absolutely no difference in how the ghost dog chased me. Yeah. But yeah, that puzzle took me Because I forgot that I had the flute for a little bit. So I tried to do runs without fast travel. And thank goodness I remembered the flute, because I don't think I could have done it. So kudos to everyone in your community again.
Yeah, everyone who did that, it's really impressive, because there's a lot of rooms that you have to go through. And like a lot of the rooms, like the I keep wanting to call it the dog will, it will just kind of like float around. Like it doesn't like beeline right for you, but you can't mess up too bad on the path. And there's this one room after you fast travel, I think it's the next one on the right from the bear place where you come out, where there's these 3 blocks that you have to hit a switch, the blocks will rise up, then you can jump to the other side. And the third one, I just had a lot of trouble with that. So that was the one where it was like, if I can get this, then I'm good. And there's also like a room close to where you put the disc that there's a door that you can use one of your like disposable keys to unlock the door, and it makes it like way easier to get through there. So I'm glad I did that. So yeah, that was one of the things that scared me when it first popped out. But then I think one of this game's most famous puzzles, I would say, how to get through this. So that was fun to figure out. I had a good time.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those, again, going back to the idea of feeling like you are so familiar with a place that you can like feel like you have this really good sense of confidence in how to navigate it. Like I remember even after I figured out, I was like, oh, I should use my fast travel and see if I can like distract the dog and then, fast travel there. I did a few dry runs where I was like practicing. And it just, again, I don't do that in games. It's not something that I typically would be excited about, but I was really excited to do it because I was like, oh, this is going to show that I really understand like how this game works and how this area works. And I know exactly how to optimize my jumps and timing and everything. So it felt really, really good. Yeah. I did have one more scary moment. Yeah. And this was probably the area where I wouldn't say frustrated, but it gave me the most trouble. And that's actually the final boss in your first level of beating the game, and that's like the Manticore.
Yeah.
The first time the Manticore's like spidery leg came onto the screen and you see this dark shadow and terrifying face peek in, oh my gosh, I panicked so hard. I was like running in circles around myself, realized I could just hop down essentially. And then it had laser eyes, which really threw, like that was
unexpected,
so difficult for me.
Yeah. And the music is intense during this final encounter too. I did not like this. I think it's like, it's a really creepy and cool design for a monster. And the music is, like I said, it's going nuts back there, but I didn't like the process for how to get past it. Going through and hitting all of these switches, and not only like taking several attempts to map out a route, but then taking several attempts to get it right. The one thing that I think saves it and feels like it was something that may have been added a little bit later was there's a lot of fireworks, and like every switch that you hit, you'll pick up some firecrackers, and firecrackers will buy you just a couple of seconds to like jump down somewhere and get started on the next part of the process. Yeah. I think if there was like half the number of fireworks in there, I would have like gotten like legitimately mad during this. As it was, I was just pretty frustrated.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, again, I acknowledge and I am known to panic in these moments. And it really is not beneficial. Like in this encounter specifically, it's like if you cannot effectively, confidently jump, you just need to hide from the lasers. And I just never took that to heart in the way I should have. Even as a player, I'm like yelling at myself in my head, like hide. And my fingers would just do whatever they wanted to do. Yeah,
your fingers are button mashing. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my natural state, and I try to fight it as best as I can. But yeah, it was just also so intense. And I think this combination of the puzzles right before the Manticore I thought were wonderful, because there's this element in the puzzles right before that boss encounter where you are using the slinky, you're jumping down, you're using the frisbee, you got to get, you're using the bubble wand to jump back up, and you're using that to solve all the switches. That to me was like, oh my gosh, this feels like the final test. I am graduating. I'm using these tools back to back. I'm switching them and they're all in the same room. That felt so good. And then it did feel just like I almost wish the boss encounter was closer to the previous room's experience than what it was, simply because it was more, again, I use the word frustrating loosely, but it was more frustrating than like empowering to play for me.
Yeah, the rooms before it were definitely the final exam for the more traditional puzzles.
Yeah.
The figure out what items to use, what timings to throw them out, be in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. I just realized we didn't talk about the more traditional puzzles at all yet. And that's what they are. It's a lot of like, you have these items, they have very specific uses for the puzzles, but it's a lot of like figuring out the sequence, the timing, and then you set this like Rube Goldberg machine up with your slinky going down and your disc flying across the room. And you set this up and then you get to the right place at the right time so you can sneak through this door before it closes, stuff like that. And I like those for the most part in the base game. And then I liked the final challenge because with most of those puzzles, the worst thing that's going to happen is you are not there when you should be, and you just go back and try it again. Most of them you don't die or anything, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. But then with the Manticore, then we get back into boss runs, and like there's a couple of those puzzles on the way from the phone to the Manticore where you have to like rotate the crank and like do that whole thing, and like as I'm frustrated by I got lasered to death or something like that. Now I got to do this crank and I got to jump through the door and do this whole thing. And it's like, I just think I'm kind of over boss runs as a concept, but I agree with you. The stuff right before that Manticore felt like a good final test of those type of puzzles. And then you get the final exam of like, okay, how do you execute under pressure? Let's go. It's panic time.
I know I'm not good. Why must you do this again?
But eventually we get it. And it's the ending. It's like the quote, the first ending. When you go down and you hit that TNT and all the fireworks go off, it's like visually really, really trippy and cool. I took a bunch of screenshots.
Cool. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And also a little cathartic.
It is. And it's interesting because, again, it's like there's a lot of lore. I don't want to call it a story, but there's a lot of lore in this world. And like things do have rules and history. So I think what's really interesting is like we know in this area there are a lot of like generally there are creatures in the higher levels of the well that don't enjoy the fireworks or light, but there are also creatures who don't mind it. Down in these lower levels, they all are like very much creatures of the dark. Like you feel like they don't like light. They're super averse to the firecrackers. So seeing this, like, again, I'm like, who put this TNT here?
Yeah.
Why is this here? And why are we doing this to this Manticore? Just a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But then you get a key.
Yep.
And this is where the things go just off the wall for me.
This is so like we mentioned briefly, non-spoiler section, we talked about this weird juxtaposition of like this lush natural environment and then these man-made things that don't seem to fit perfectly well. But nothing stands out more than after you beat the Manticore and you unlock the door and you walk into your house. And it's like there's a TV and a couch and there's posters on the wall and there's the little BigMode mascot stuffed animal in there. Yeah. And it's like, what? And then you go in the next room and there's a giant cuckoo clock. And so you thought like, okay, I beat the game, but then the game is like, okay, so you beat the final boss, but like you didn't beat this game. We're going to present you with the weirdest mysteries. Like, I guess I can get if someone like beat that and they're like, okay, this is weird. I don't understand it, but I'm finished. I guess I would get that, but I saw this house and this clock, and I was like, I guess I got to keep playing and figure out what this is. Now, spoiler, I never did figure out what that was, but I was inspired to keep going.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way, where I think, I've talked to some folks who are like, yeah, I beat the first layer. Found all the flames, defeated the Manticore. I know there's more, but I'm okay. I'm cool. I also was like you, where for me, the thought that I had as soon as I saw that, like the bedroom, office room area, was, okay, the game's now really beginning. Like this is the real animal well to me. This is where we're really going to start digging deep. Yeah, and again, this is like this weird juxtaposition, and this specifically this idea of childhood and of digital toys specifically, or just like toys and digital content of like childhood, combined with this idea of nature, is really, really fascinating to me. And I don't know what is being said, or if there's anything being said, or if it's maybe just a fever dream. And Billy is just like, I like these things and I'm going to put them in a game. That's it. It's not that deep. Maybe that's what it is. But I feel like there's more. And I am also still in the journey of uncovering it. The clock was fascinating because it was driving me up the wall. Because as you play, now it's like every hour, you hear the sound of like a cuckoo clock chiming. And I was like, where is this dang clock? It's like, it was driving me so up the wall. I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm feeling like I'm getting most of the map, but there is no clock. I have seen nothing in the way of a cuckoo clock. And so finally seeing it at the end of the game was a level of catharsis of like, okay, at least this answers that question before we add like 50 more.
Yep. I don't know why, but I was surprised to see a physical clock down here. Like, I mean, it's huge. There's no reason it should be here if you think this is a real place at all. Like, why? But for some reason, I just kind of thought like this is a weird sound effect that plays every now and then. But I didn't expect a giant clock. And so that, like you said, it just opens up all these other questions. Like, okay, what happens if I'm here when it strikes midnight? Which I timed out and I went down and waited for. Kind of disappointing. Nothing happens. Nothing interesting. Maybe I don't have the right items for it. There's a bunch of symbols and stuff on the clock that I just maybe don't understand. But one thing I like too is you get to the clock, you get to the house. The house has another locked door in it. So there's a new mystery to go hunt for, try and find that key. And then next to the clock, in a little hidden path, which you by this point, you should be able to identify like, that's not a real wall. I can walk right through that. Right. There's I think it's a squirrel in there that has a stopwatch that shows your playtime. So I was like, okay, this is important. Otherwise they wouldn't show this to me. So that was interesting. I never found that key, though. I don't know what's in the house.
Same. I have not found that key yet. I'm going to be continuing. This is a game that I'm definitely continuing in. Yeah. And I think, again, there are certain animals that I feel like have a significance to them. Obviously, bunnies. We know that collecting bunnies is part of a layer in this game. The squirrel is also really interesting to me. I don't know if it's simply meant to act as a guide or if it's meant to do anything else deeper within this game, but I'm not, we start the game by seeing a squirrel and following it at a couple of key points. Like I think most notably right before the seahorse guardian, or I don't know if it's a seahorse. It's kind of a seahorsey looking thing. The one that was shooting the bubble water. The squirrel is there. So we see the squirrel at key points as well, also at the end of the game with the stopwatch. And so I'm like, what does the squirrel mean? Or is it just a squirrel? Because Billy likes squirrels. I don't know.
Actually, I might be misquoting this, so apologies if so. But Billy Basso did a Reddit AMA, and someone asked a question like that, was like, why animals? What's the significance? And he might just be, joking too, but he just said, I think animals are cool. That's why it's animals. So,
oh, Billy,
he might be being
sure.
coy, but yeah. I did definitely notice like the theme of all the childhood things, all the weapons, all the items you pick up, the bubble wand, the frisbee, a top, a remote control, firecrackers, all kids' toys, basically.
Yeah.
I did definitely notice that. And I thought that was like, I feel like there has to be something there, even if the answer is just, this is a child's imagination come to life as a video game world. A child looking into a well and seeing like, what could be down there? And then this is the answer to that. And all these, if you imagine, a little kid like Ness or something, like decked out with all your toys out in the yard and or somewhere, and you see a well and you're like, we would go down there and go on an adventure and see what's at the bottom of that well. And this is the answer to that. And we have this weird world where things don't make a whole lot of sense if you try and map it onto how, like, again, real world ecosystems work and animals that don't live together and stuff like that. But if you put it in that framing of like a child's imagination, I think it works.
I think one thing, just to go back to the clock as well as one detail, one thing about all of these childhood elements, again, is the very 80s and 90s feel that it has for me. But I thought the clock in particular was most interesting because that had a very older feeling. Like it's a grandfather clock, or I guess, is that what it's called? Where it's like kind of the old wood ornamental looking clock. It has the Roman numerals. Yeah. And so what was interesting to me, again, is this like, okay, everything else has been very like when you save, the floppy disk pops up, like that's a relic. You're using an old telephone, like the one where you pick up and it's an actual like receiver instead of, and so I thought
got the CRT TV in the house.
CRT TV. And so again, it's like there are these choices that I don't yet know why they were made, but because everything is so specific and so intentional in the game, I feel like it's a choice that I need to pay attention to, that this clock, for whatever reason, it looks like a grandfather clock that's older than everything else that you've engaged with in the game.
Yeah, I wonder if the same people that put together all the From Software stories could play Animal well and put together like a definitive like lore, and here's how all these pieces fit together. Vadi Vidya is busy right now with Elden Ring DLC, but maybe we can get him on the case.
Oh my gosh, that would be great.
But yeah, I wasn't able to put together anything other than what I already said. Basically, like the through line connecting all of these things is interesting. Did you find the Tamagotchi with the pedometer in it?
I did. I haven't figured out if it does anything else though. It just has counted my steps and that's it.
Yeah. So it okay, so you pick up a pedometer item that counts your steps, but a couple rooms to the right of the clock, you can throw your top down and there's a Tamagotchi that you can jump inside of. You found that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to get inside the Tamagotchi with fewer than 100 steps in order to get past these gates. Because your pedometer resets when you hit 1,000 or 10,000 or something like that. So you have to get in there. You can get these treasures and you can pick up some items. I think one of the items that you pick up in there is the remote control.
No, because I got the remote control before even finishing the first run. So maybe it's just weird. Another path. Yeah, because I got the remote control. How did I get the remote control? I forgot, but I know I got it around the time I had 3 flames. Okay. So no, I'm definitely wrong then. Just misremembering that. Yeah.
But you do pick up some items in there, but then if you jump in the Tamagotchi with like right as your step counter resets to 0 and you can get all the way to the last treasure chest, which I looked up online because I didn't have the patience to do this myself, you get one of the hints for like the ultimate, deepest puzzle, which I looked up on YouTube. And like, this is one of those things I looked up on YouTube. And when I saw it, I was like, I would have never figured this out. So I'm glad that I'm at least seeing it.
Yeah.
But it's wild. The stuff that like
There's
is at like the
another
deepest
level of
level.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Past the bunnies, past the matches and candles, past the eggs. There's another layer with
Absolutely wild.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want me to tell you? I know you're still playing.
Yes. No, I am very okay. I'm at the point where I'm like, I think I'm just going to be using the community and looking stuff up because I think I've exhausted my brain at this point.
Yeah. So that's the point where I got to as well. So there are certain things that you have to do in the game, and you'll get these messages in Unicode, which I just learned about. I did not know what Unicode was until yesterday, but they're like symbols, basically.
Yeah.
So one of the things is if you get to the last treasure chest inside the Tamagotchi, it opens it up and it just gives you a Unicode message. Mm-hmm. There are other weird things that you have to do to get these messages, like trapping the kangaroo in like a pit and throwing a bunch of fireworks at it, and it will like curse at you in Unicode. So you get that message. One of the others is if you speedrun and beat the game from a fresh file in under an hour, it will give you one of those. Yeah. There's also another treasure chest that you can only reach if you get to it without dying. Did you find the room with the skulls? It's right next to so you get through the Manticore, you go to the next level, you jump over a little body of water, and then you go down. And when you get down to the bottom, you hit the TNT and the fireworks go off.
Oh, but man, I'm not recalling it now. Yeah.
On the path down, there's a hidden wall. And inside that room, you get a treasure chest. There are 2 treasure chests. One of them is blocked by these skulls that appear when you die. So I had 30 whatever skulls in there every time I died. I could still reach the one on the top, but there's another one on the bottom you can only get to if you don't die, which is crazy.
That is so mean.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. No, I have not discovered that room. And I'm pretty sure it's full.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to start a fresh file.
The good thing is in this, the video I was watching explaining these Unicode messages, the good thing is if you die, you can just don't save again and it will not count. So that's helpful because one of the things you have to do to get one of the Unicode messages, you have to go around the world, eat 100 pieces of fruit without taking damage. So they were after you get a couple, save, and it will save it. And if you get hit, just shut it off, start again from your save, and it will keep that progress. So that's very nice. But there's 8 of these ways to get these Unicode messages, and they are insane. I don't know how anyone found half of these, but once you get all of those, I have in the notes here the picture of the house, right? The picture of your room. And to the left of the TV, there's that poster with those little colored blocks. And someone figured out that those Unicode messages map into those colored portions on that poster, and it makes a map.
No. What the heck? How are people so smart?
I know, right?
This is another, this is something I would never figure out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So this also blew my mind. There is a place in the game that's like space. It's like the Zelda Lost Woods, basically, and you have to follow this map to get through it. The person was flying. They turned into a butterfly in the video I watched. How they did that, I have no idea. But apparently that's a thing.
What?
When I texted you earlier and was like,
Yeah.
this shit goes like, it blew my mind. This is what I meant. So
Wow.
you go through this map, all these directions, and you follow it like the Lost Woods, and eventually you get to a time capsule. And inside the time capsule is a Walkman, another, 80s, 90s type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You put on the headphones with the Walkman, and there's an audio message from Billy Basso congratulating you on finding the puzzle he thought no one would ever solve.
God, that's so good. Oh, wow.
There's, and I feel really bad. I forget the other guy's name, the business partner.
Mm-hmm.
There's a message from him telling you that they're proud of you and worried for you for all you've done. And then there's a message from Dunkey saying that he's been trapped in the game for 277 years and thank you for letting him out. Classic, right?
Oh my gosh.
So
that's amazing.
I think this is the ultimate secret.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's one of those things. I'm really glad I watched the video because I think it's crazy. Like, I thought I knew how deep this all went, but this video that was like, here's how the final secret in Animal Well works. This video picks up like 3 layers lower than I thought was possible, which is wild.
Now, I'm curious, do you think that there's still stuff in Animal Well that we have not yet uncovered?
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. Like, earlier you said something that stuck with me, secret for secret's sakes. And like, some of these things that I've talked about are secrets for secret's sake, right? They're not, well, I guess the one that lets you fly, that's a definite gameplay benefit because they can just fly around the map. Other than that, all of these things are just like, you found this really weird and cryptic thing. And then you put those weird and cryptic things together and you find this other secret. And none of this has like real effects on your gameplay or anything like that. It's a secret to find because it's fun to find secrets, which is, when you said it that way, I started to think like, yeah, there is stuff later that it's just for the joy of finding secrets. And, normally I like my secrets in video games to be something that's going to help with gameplay or some new story lore or something like that. But when you're this deep in Animal Well, if you're doing the work, I feel like you're so motivated by the hunt for secrets that just finding it and finding that audio message from Billy Basso is worth it. All the work would probably be worth it. Plus you can fly now. So I don't know. I think it's cool. And I guess just because someone found this doesn't mean there's something else later. Like, kind of get the feeling that Billy Basso has a bit of troll in him, just a little bit, right? So saying you found the unsolvable puzzle, if there's one more after that, that wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think, again, I recall in an earlier interview where someone asked about like the three tiers that we keep talking about. First there's flames, then there's eggs, then there's bunnies. Is there anything more? And in that interview, he said, nope, 3 tiers sounds pretty good, or some, he said some other words, but basically that's what he said. So I feel like at this point, I think Billy is wonderful, and I don't believe him whenever he says anything about the game.
100%.
Oh, yeah. And I say that with love.
Yeah, for sure. It does just keep going. And I think, I think it's perfect how everybody can just kind of figure out the point where they're going to jump off, like the point where they're satisfied, like you said earlier. And for us, it sounds like it's at pretty similar points, but there was a person in my Discord server who got all the bunnies, and they may have continued on after that. And so everyone's going to decide for themselves. And then there's these, the people on YouTube who did all the work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Finding that time capsule and everything. Like it's just crazy to me and impressive. And I'm not, upset or anything. It's just genuinely impressive that when I went to search for, Animal Well final secrets or whatever, the thing that came up on the screen was obviously the same game, but it was kind of not the same game that I played. Like, it's almost like you're playing a different game at that point, which is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Again, it's the idea of knowing that your journey through the game is also going to be so different from other people, which is why I, up until this point, have avoided going online and looking anything up, really, and only talking with friends who I knew could, like, give me what I wanted and not just, like, spoil things for me. Because I knew that with the way this game was structured, if I went in and looked online, like, I have no idea. I honestly wouldn't have even known how to search for some of the questions that I had because they're so weirdly specific and everything is so nonlinear. It's not like you can go to, like, a walkthrough and be like, I'm on chapter 3. Let's see, like, at this exact point. So, yeah, it's been really cool. I will say again, the bubble wand was a relatively late get for me, which was really interesting. So I remember hearing and seeing a bunch of my friends talking about the bubble wand. And I'm like, man, how far in the game are you? And then later realizing they got it as, like, first item, basically, like first or second. And I'm over here just, I don't know what I was doing, but I was not going to some of the more obvious places initially, which was great.
Yeah, that was my first item too. I think it was bubble wand, then yo-yo, then frisbee, then the slinky. I think that was the 4 for me in that order. And then find the top later. There's a upgraded bubble wand that you find where you can shoot out as many bubbles as you want. That's one of the ways to get the Unicode message.
Oh, okay.
Is above the part with the statues where you jump down to go to the last little section before the Manticore. There's a hummingbird up there that pops the bubbles. And one of the ways to get a Unicode message is to just shoot 1,000,000 bubbles with the upgraded wand, and it gets mad at you.
Oh my gosh.
And again, it kind of like curses at you and flashes that message up on the screen.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I will say I was looking at my notes and there was one other bunny that I have not collected, but I think I've found. Okay. And it's, so if you are, because I will often put games just like down and look at idle animations because I think they're really cute often. With this game, I put down my Steam Deck. I was just listening to the music and my little blob went to sleep. And I was like, that's super cute. And then I ended up getting caught up in writing in a journal, or like I was using my planner and I kind of like left it up. And I looked up and it actually was dreaming of a bunny.
Ooh.
So I don't know what that means. I don't know how to get it out of my dreams and like into the physical realm, or if it, I don't know. But that's like, so I guess I have 2.5 bunnies, I guess.
Interesting. I wonder if that is a solution, because the bunnies are so much more, they're so much more secret than the eggs.
Yeah.
Like you really have to be thinking hard. And it would be funny if one of those is just related to, hey, just put the game down for 5 minutes, see what happens.
I know. As soon as I touched it, I was like, man, maybe I should have just let it go, because maybe eventually it'll run out. But I haven't done it yet. But I think I was looking it up because, again, I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm okay starting to look things up because I've just hit the wall where I don't think I can figure out the rest of it without a little help. And I think what I was looking up said there are 16 bunnies. So it's what? 40? No. How many eggs? 64?
64 eggs.
64
16
eggs,
bunnies.
16 bunnies.
9 candles.
I feel like these are all multiples. Like, there's got to be a math problem in there somewhere.
They're
what's it
they're
called?
square roots.
Yeah, they're all square roots. So okay.
Yeah.
4 flames.
But I don't know. I don't know where that pattern goes, if anywhere. Probably somewhere. I don't know.
Again, and who knows? Again, maybe Billy's like, I'm gonna put things that look and sound like puzzles. Maybe aren't even anything.
Yeah.
just
There's got to be at least a couple red herrings in there for sure. Real quick secrets, I guess, before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
Did you know that if you put in codes from Fez and Tunic on the flute, that your little dude will turn into the Fez guy and the fox from Tunic.
That's amazing. Just like a tune from the game, like a song, like the theme song, or
I think so. It's something like that, or some kind of, if there's a code that's like up, down, related to those directions, you will do that. I just confirmed. I just watched a little GIF of it. I'm not sure what exactly happened.
That's so cool.
There is that. So like you can see the obvious references to games like this that are super dense with secrets and player discovery. Fez and Tunic are probably like two of the ones at the top of that list. So to see like the direct reference to it is
cool.
You're like, okay, yeah, this is what it's going through your head when you're making this game.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Again, it's like you get the feeling that it's a love letter, but hearing something like that, it's like that's just confirmation, the homage that he's paying, and the respects he's paying to like the games that have also contributed to this genre.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
So
100%.
Cool.
So, that is Animal Well for our purposes. There are many secrets that I don't think we discussed. And despite me looking up the quote, the final secret, there are plenty of secrets that I don't know exist. I don't know what happens when you get all the candles. I found an incubator. I don't know what happens. I don't know what I'm supposed to put in that thing.
What?
Yeah. Real weird stuff. I assume it's something related to getting all the eggs, but the point is there's still stuff that I don't know. And I think that you're probably right. There's probably still stuff that Billy Basso is just waiting at home, twirling his mustache or whatever, just waiting for someone to find. So this has been a really fun episode. The non-spoiler part, talking about the game's, mechanical merits and things like that. And then just a good old fashioned, like, here's the stuff that I found. What did you find? Type discussion in this spoiler section. So I really thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast and chat with me about it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Again, I've been looking forward to this ever since we talked about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of game where if you have the possibility of talking with other people about it, like take it. It just enriches it so much more.
Yeah, 100%. And I just sent you the picture of the little Tunic
thank
guy.
Thank you. That is
super cute.
So cute. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, at the end of the episode, we'll give one more call for everybody listening. If you've stuck around to the end, as always, you're my hero. And another call for you to go check out the things that Jenny's doing, like Geeks and Grounds podcast, wholesome games. And if Jenny's on all kinds of other showcases and industry things around. So if you see her, go support, follow on Twitch, stuff like that. So down in the show notes, again, you'll find a link to all of that stuff. And this has been great. Thank you again for coming on. Good conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very happy and honored to be a part of the backlog now.
That's right. Forever. Etched in backlog lore. So thank you, everybody, for listening all the way to the end. And as always, tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now. Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCoy.
with many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers
and
happy gaming.